Good morning to everyone here. I'd like to welcome all of us to today's session. My name is Marvin Keith Mutebi. So we shall be starting in the next few minutes. I would like to ask everyone to mute their microphones so that we don't get feedback from each other or noise in other people's backgrounds. So when you join in, kindly mute your microphones. If I realize that you're persistently having noise in your background, I'll have to eject you from the meeting. Yeah, that said, today's session, like we shared, like for those of you who have looked at the post that we're sharing around, it's basically a post-election dialogue on non-violence, also concentrating on peace messaging and the civic political participation by youth and youth leaders. This particular dialogue has been organized in collaboration with African Youth Development League and the Youth Coalition for Electoral Democracy with Africa Leadership Institute. And the background is really simple. During the build-up to the 2021 general elections, there are different reports on how youth were going to cause havoc, where youth were going to be violent in the election, where many political leaders were of the view that this particular election was going to be non-violent because of the high involvement of the youth. However, it turned out to be a peaceful election from the side of the youth participation. Largely around the country, many youth were non-violent during this election. And this is something we advocated towards the run of the 2021 general election. However, it doesn't mean that even when the youth were non-violent and peace-abiding citizens, there was really no violence or a lot of political intolerance during the election. There was, but largely it wasn't because of the youth, it was other actors. And just after the general election, now we're looking at the post-election period. There's been a lot of target on young people, mainly by security agencies and others unknown. So we want to ask ourselves, if during the general election or during the run to, that's the pre and the polling day, youth were peaceful and they managed to participate non-violently. How come on the post of the election we're having a number of youth being targeted, for various crimes, but largely connected to political participation? So we want to have a dialogue on peace messaging, one, from the side of the youth, and two, from the side of the state. And then we want to see what experiences other youth-led organizations have and what role we can play as youth leaders to push this message of peace from the side of the youth and to the side of the state. And our major objectives today will be to forge collaborative synergies of nonviolence messaging in the aftermath of the 21 election and beyond. We don't want the non-violence to only stop on election day and then after election we're having lots of violent things. The second objective of today's dialogue will basically be to mobilize stakeholders for meaningful civic political participation. First, these stakeholders include the state, the youth leaders, the youth-led CSOs, the youth themselves, and that's what we're trying to do. We're mobilizing these stakeholders to civic political participation, where all rights are respected from both parties and all obligations and duties are adhered to. Their third objective will be to really generate recommendations on managing the tension that is being caused by the recently concluded 2021 general elections. There's been a lot of tension. Very many young people cannot sleep in their homes anymore because of that tension. You know, they're getting rumors that they're being looked for by the state or by different people. So there's a lot of tension. So we want to, generate recommendations on how can we manage the tension that has been caused. Then we also want to improve the knowledge, attitude, and practice of youth leaders in governance. On so many occasions, violence has been really driven by the leaders, youth leaders. There are very many ways of being assertive and demanding for accountability or respect of human rights without necessarily being violent. So we want to improve the knowledge of young people, youth leaders, because you're the influencers in the societies you are, where you are. So if you have the right knowledge and the right information, the right attitude, there's a higher chance that we shall have this message of peace going far out there. I would like to ask members on the platform to mute their microphones, especially if you don't have the floor. As you move forward, if you consistently create this background noise, I'll be left with no option but to reject you. So I was just trying to give a background of today's dialogue. It's going to be largely interactive, and we want to hear from all the sides, youth leaders, the CSOs on ground, on those four main objectives that I've mentioned. Today's moderator will be Ivan Otim. He's the coordinator of the Youth Coalition for Electoral Democracy that have been key in coming up with the Youth Manifesto. And we have a current version, 2021 to 2025. I hope you have looked at it. It forms the aspiration of the youth in the next term. So Ivan Otim will be our moderator today. He will introduce himself when he gets on. Then we shall also have Mrs. Nashiba, also a program officer with Africa Youth Development League, and so many other people. We expect Afande Waswa, who is a deputy director for counterterrorism, to join us on this call. He had intimated that he will be joining just after 9. We hope he joins because it will make the discussion more balanced if we hear from the other side. Yeah, so at this stage, I want to call on Ivan to take the floor and also give a background to this particular dialogue. And he will moderate the whole function. So if you have anything to say, what we shall do, you raise your hand and the person moderating will be able to see you or call you on. You can raise your hand, or the other option is to go to the chat section and have anything you want to contribute posted in there. For now, I'll hand over to Ivan. Ivan?
Yes, good morning to everyone here. Hope I can be very clear.
Yes, you're clear.
Yes, apologies. I'm using my phone because of power blackout. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone can hear me. Yes, thank you very much, Marvin, for the preamble, but also thank you very much. One of the things that is very key is that when things are happening out there, the voice of young people is always silent. But fundamentally, we know that that silence does not mean that things are all well, because apparently we have been doing a lot of voter engagement, but also we have been doing some kind of post-election engagement with the purpose of trying to re-echo the process, the experience, the narratives out there, and trying to build them into a broader conversation. So fundamentally today here, the reason why we hosted this dialogue on non-violence, peace messaging, and civic political participation, just like Marvin has said, is in the context that we have just finished an electoral process. An electoral process that some of us from the side, depends on which side you look at it, will be reflected as a fundamental undermining democracy in its own sense. Because we know that we went into an election amid this COVID, the restrictions. However, we also went into an election peacefully. That is no doubt. The process all over was peaceful. But we have had narratives from young people, but also we have had from different stakeholders out there about the alleged, I'll use the word alleged kidnaps. And if Afande Waswa will be joining us, we'll be able to answer some of these questions. The alleged kidnap, the arbitrary arrests of young people. One of the fundamental aspects will be the criminalization of young people. So right now we have a picture out there that young people are saying that the state is looking at them as criminals. But what does this mean for the future of democracy? So it's the reason why we're here to debate. But also listen from you out there, what are the issues that we can be able to galvanize our voice on and say, I think these things can be able to be addressed amicably. And we push government because the voice of young people in this process has been fundamentally heard. Marvin has hinted on the aspect that the build up to the election was a narrative that the election was going to be violent. That narrative, no one can dispute it. But the aspect of it being violent in most cases is that most times young people become the instruments. But we have seen in the post-election engagement that narrative has been shifted from young people to the possibility that it's the state that is trying to be violent in this way. So if Afande Waswa joins us, Afande Waswa is the Deputy Director of the Counterterrorism. He will be able to answer some of these questions. So at this moment, I will ask one of our panelists, Nashiba, are you here? Nashiba, are you here?
Yes, Ivan.
Yes, welcome, Nashiba, to this dialogue. So this dialogue has basic outcomes that we want to make very strongly, and it shouldn't be just conversation for us out there, because we have a Twitter chat. This conversation is going to be going outside there. So we kind of forge synergies on non-violence messaging, the aftermath, in the context that young people are criminalized, but also to mobilize the stakeholders for civic meaningful civic political participation. So we have won the electoral process, but we fundamentally know that we have elected leaders who we charge the responsibilities of running the state of affairs on our behalf. So what next? Do we stay in this scenario, or we have to ask now for the second phase of accountability? But also we need to generate recommendations on managing the tensions. So can we be a voice out there that we can now deliberate with stakeholders and say, something is not right here, we need to fix this. We need to fix this. Young people cannot be in this kind of state of affairs, and we think that the country can be peaceful. So we need to have these recommendations drawn that we can be able to push them through. So at this moment, I will ask Nashiba, who is our first panelist, to help us reflect from your lens on the electoral process.
Okay.
So within that,
Thank
you're
you
going to
so
help
much.
us reflect on the pre, during, and the post-electoral process. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nashiba.
Thank you so very much, Ivan and Marvin, for preamble. Once again, I want to appreciate young people who are on this platform to kind of make sense of the events that are continuing to happen, but of course reflecting on the pre, during, and after the 2021 elections. Ivan, I should say that as we phase out from, of course, the electoral processes, participation of young people has been so fundamental, although it has had a lot of hurdles. But if we reflect on the pre-election phase, you find out that a lot of things happened. Young people participated, of course, as they participated as candidates. They participated in voter education. They participated through so many forms. Although we also need to acknowledge that we've had some challenges, especially when it comes to nomination fees and so many other things that kind of limited young people's active participation in the recently concluded elections. If you are keen enough, you've been able to realize that the nomination fees sometimes being too high has limited so many young people to participate because most of them had not raised that amount of money which was required for them to be nominated as candidates for the different political positions. Secondly, from that very lens of the young people, you find that most of them make 18 years when they have not yet registered. So that means that the law does not favor them, because when for example, the law provides that so someone should be of age 18 and registered. But now you find out that there are those who make 18 when they are not registered. So that means that they miss out on voting because they've not yet registered as voters. So, and one of the recommendations we made in that regard was to kind of make this process continuous. As in the voter registration process, to make it continuous, so that young people get time to register, but also to exercise their mandate as voters. I should as well acknowledge that voter education was so insufficient, given the situation. Of course, COVID-19 contributed to the insufficient voter education. And of course, that this was justified with the high numbers of the invalid votes, which we registered in the previously concluded 2021 elections. But also we were also able to observe that the candidates, for example, were given little time to consult. Of course, of course there were angry voices that were kind of being politicized, that are being suppressed, that they were not being allowed to kind of conduct countrywide consultations, but there was little time for consultation. So that means that, of course, the incumbents had more time to consult as compared to the rest of the candidates. I'm talking about the presidential candidates, the ones who previously conduct, the ones who participated in the presidential race. That aside, of course, even as you are aware, we tried to engage the different political parties and, of course, individual candidates who participated, who had candidates in the recently concluded 2021 elections. And most of them, especially those on the opposition side, they've been telling us that actually COVID-19 was used as a tool to suppress them, to kind of limit them from, reaching out to the populace. And of course, it was so evident that also police used a lot of force against the young people, especially the North supporters. I'm aware everyone witnessed the November incidents because of the Chabulani riots and all that. A lot of force was used against the young people, and so many died. That was just a reflection on the pre. Like I said when I was starting that, what transpires before the day influences the outcome of the election. Like sorry about that. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
By the guild.
Is it the guild? I don't think it's the guild.
Can someone mute their microphone, please?
Go ahead, I've muted him.
Okay, thank you so much. Of course, that was the perspective of the pre-election. When Ivan was starting, he put it so clearly that the election exercise, the election day was kind of peaceful. Yes, it was peaceful because, like we said, we were able to observe what was transpiring in most of the districts, and were able to compile a report. And yes, that generally it was peaceful on the D-Day, except some of the few things that were able to take note of. For example, the insufficient electoral materials, the basins, the desks. Of course, you find that this was supposed to be a secret ballot, but because of the insufficient materials, you find that some people we are taking ballots from desks, no basin, and this of course kind of jeopardized the secrecy of their vote. The election period also was full of misconception, misinformation, hate speech, because I remember there was, I don't know if it was a propaganda, that some of those pens did not have that durable ink. Like sometimes it would erase, but so people were kind of mobilized to come with their own pens. Others were using hate speech. And as young people, we are making this kind of reflection so that we know what is good for us. We know what to avoid next time. So there was also a lot of hate speech. You find that because someone wants to kind of tarnish the image of the opponent before the populace, they end up saying a lot of false things about the. Can someone mute, please? Okay. Thank you so much. Another issue was about the biometric voter verification machines. We realized that most of the agents did not have the capacity to make use of these machines. And in this regard, most of them instead used the voter register, and of course the voter's slip to verify the votability for, for most of the voters. Sometimes these machines would, would kind of, generally they were, some of them were not functional, whereas other agencies just had the capacity gap. So next time, maybe the EC will be able to train the agents on time so that they get to understand how to make use of these machines. We also had a chance to observe the youth elections, yes, in most of the region, in all the regions of this country. But there was information gap. For example, I had a chance myself to observe the elections for Youth MP Central Region. Earlier, they had communicated that the elections will take place in Masaka, and most of the delegates traveled that side. But at the eve, that is when they communicated that actually it was Murende, when some of the delegates were already on the other side. So we see this, someone may think that this was some kind of deliberate, move to kind of deter, certain delegates from making their choice or even making it on time to the venue. We also realized that some of the venues were not accessible by persons with disabilities. Some of the polling stations were just on raised grounds. Some of them were at the football pitches, playgrounds, whereby it would take someone to kind of make efforts to get there, but there were no provision for persons with disability to kind of access some of the polling stations. That aside, there was a lot of money, voter bribery, campaigns on the polling day. You find that when someone, by the time we turn up for elections, that means that the time for campaigns is over. But we were able to observe that even on the D-Day, some people were going ahead with the campaigns. Others had their posters within the vicinities of the polls. So, and of course, to me, that would somehow influence the choice of someone who is taking the ballot, because they can easily see the face the other side, and again, know easily who to mark. There was also heavy deployment on the D-Day, but also we need to acknowledge that standard operating procedures for COVID-19 were violated in most of the places. Insufficient hand washing facilities, masks and generally, like everyone was able to see, there was no social distancing at all. However, the elderly and the persons with disabilities were supported, and we applaud them for that. But also, we are able to acknowledge that in most of the places, voting ended on time, and it was generally peaceful. Now, in the perspective of the aftermath, we have been able to, conduct post-election engagements, like Ivan highlighted in the beginning. We've been able to meet the different stakeholders to forge ways through which we can manage the situation, especially with the tension that has continued to occur. As a student of peace and conflict, this is not necessarily peace. Instead, it is negative peace because there is tension, which is just evident. We've been engaging young people with different stakeholders, but we've been able to observe that the kidnaps are still going on. For example, recently we were in Wakiso, and the youth were saying that yes, they had the minister parading the names for the alleged kidnaps and those in police detentions, but most of them, their members in the community did not appear, their names did not appear on the minister's list. So they were still wondering where these people could be when they are not on the list for the minister. And they continued to, of course, they informed us that they have fear because they think anytime the drone would come for them, they are not supposed to speak. But also another issue which they talked about, which is kind of limiting their engagement meaningfully in their economic activities as young people, the curfew. Most of the young people in the engagements that we've made in the aftermath of this election, they think that curfew is not necessary at this point. They think that maybe it should be lifted so that they are able to operate their businesses, most of which boom during evening hours. Talk of chapati makers, talk of border riders, talk of roadside vendors, and all those are young people. The evening hours is when they kind of conduct their small business. But they're saying that the police and the security always harass them, in the name of enforcing the curfew. Another issue that they talked about, but of course, this was a conversation between the youth and of course the leaders, but also the police and the security also had a complaint that the youth are so provocative that they see a policeman, they're carrying a gun, but they go ahead, to utter all sorts of, but the verbal utterances and negative, statements against them. So they think the youth should also change. They think they are being so provocative, and sometimes they influence how they respond or how they arrest them. So I think as leaders on this platform, we shall be able to kind of talk to our youth out there in case there are any of those who provoke the police and the security. Maybe we can always talk to them, and of course, maybe they can change for the better. I've talked about the arrests, the drones. I've talked about the curfew, but we were also able to make some recommendations. Like I said, when I talked of the electoral law, we need the reform so that the voter registration becomes continuous. So that even the young people so that any young people who makes 18 is able to exercise their mandate as voters. We also recommended for timely dissemination of electoral information by the EC, because why would someone, at the deep day, they do not know where the election has taken place. We also need to invest in preparing for the unknown, so that we are always ready in case of any unfamiliar circumstances. We should be able to respond, because now COVID-19 came and what education was so insufficient. So you see how COVID-19 affected the whole process. So our recommendation was that next time we need we need to be prepared for the unknown. I've talked about the timely dissemination of the information, but also we recommended that youth MPs should be elected through adult suffrage, not the electoral college as it is right now, because you find that these young people represent regions regions are made, are comprised of so many young people. So you find that these are not able to deliver on their mandate, given that, given the huge load which they have to work on. Young people have a lot of challenges, so you find that an individual who is representing a region in the parliament may not be able to address all the issues that are affecting the youth. And this means that they should be voted by, all the youth in that region who are registered voters, not necessarily the few youth who, elect them through the electoral college system. We also acknowledge that we need more platforms for engagement. We need more platforms because in one of the engagements which we conducted in Kisenyi Mengo, youth were bitter. And young people, I'm telling you, are still bitter. So it is through these dialogues and platforms, it is through these platforms where they extend their views to kind of relieve the anger, but also, to get hope and, some of them have been linked to opportunities. For example, last time we were in Nasada, and the OC was able to connect some of the youth to operation wealth creation, and yeah, they were able to kind of appreciate the kind of opportunity that was given. So those are some of the recommendations that we made in this regard. Otherwise, Ivan, I want to take it back to you, please. Ivan, Ivan, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much, Nashiba, for that pre, during, and after the electoral process. So you have listened very well. I don't need to repeat what she has said. She's speaking from a hands-on experience. She has listened to these voices. But one thing that I also have heard from her is we need more platforms for engagement. So who's going to create these platforms? And are stakeholders ready to listen to different young people? One thing that we cannot dispute right now is that the voice of young people should be heard more stronger than ever. How do we make this voice more stronger? Not in just the practice of going to vote, elected, accountable. It's fundamentally important because elections give us that power to elect the leaders whom we charge the responsibility of running the state of affairs on our behalf. So the fundamental question will be, is that same power going to be exhibited in this post-election period for the next 5 years, where we increasingly voice our issues and see budgets accommodating to our issues? We have heard young people talking about lack of jobs, and that's how they can be easily lured into acts of violence. Do we see an immediate budget right now as we go into? Do we see an immediate budget? I would call them supplementary. We have seen supplementaries come, but we don't see supplementary to address this issue. You and I are going to answer these questions. And I'm planning to reach out to Afande Waswa. I think he's probably in an emergency meeting, just like he did to me in the morning. But he told me that he will be able to join in later. But however, we need to find this conversation going on. So at this moment, I would ask if anyone out there has a hand. Marvin, you're going to help me. I'm using my mobile phone, so it's going to be difficult for me to look out for those who are really putting up their hands. I see Ken Ken, please
Yeah, there's Ken.
mute your microphone. Your question or the brief.
Ivan, thank you. Thank you. Are you getting me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we are. Ken, go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, mine is like in such engagements. I was overviewed that actually the host, you should be engaging religious leaders in such issues and conversation. But I've never seen any of the religious leaders being hosted on the platform, because I think religious leaders are the pioneers and major advocates of peace. Now, when you come to peace, I think religious leaders are the advocates and pioneers of peace. And that's my view. Just a view.
Thank you very much, Ken. Marvin, help me out. Help me out, Marvin.
Yeah, what you can do, if you want to say something, please raise your hand. Then I'll call you out. I'm not seeing any hand at the moment. But I also had something to comment on Nashiba's presentation. I think as youth-led organizations, when it comes to this message of peace, we do a lot of work within the young people or within the communities. We are not doing a lot of work on the other side of the coin, which is the state. Because like Nashiba said, the police were saying that some youth are provocative. Then the way they react is what prompts the security to act. But I think we need to do some work also on the side of the state, because you find the instances where you find some violence that is state inspired, and this is not an allegation. We have seen scenarios where a few individuals from the security forces are prosecuted by the security disciplinary committees. Recently, we had soldiers that were disciplined for manhandling journalists. So it means that there is a problem on the other side. And we concentrate so much on the societies that we live in, yet some of these problems come from another side that we really don't. I think it would be of an advantage if we had someone from the other side of security be part of this conversation to really tell us that why isn't security investing also in a lot of civic engagement in terms of taking the people or the young people through methods of police work? You understand? Because there are some things as young people that we see as violence from the side of police or the army, when actually it's not violence. Maybe it's a mechanism of combating a situation, and we don't have that information. I think also there is need to look into that side. Let me have Godfred. Godfred, you can unmute. Godfred Bwambale, please unmute and go ahead with your submission. Yes, Godfred.
Marvin,
Yes.
this is for information. We are tweeting with the hashtag Uganda Youth in the interest.
Come again?
We're tweeting with the hashtag Uganda Youth for Peace. The 4 is with the 4, the real 4, number 4.
Okay.
Uganda Youth for Peace. I'm going to put it in the chat.
All right. Yeah. Members who are following, we're tweeting with hashtag Uganda Youth for Peace. 4 is a figure, so you can also check it out. I saw Godfred who had raised the hand, unmuted the microphone, but
I want to say something, but I can't see the future for the hand in mine. I'm Medi from
okay, no,
Wigan.
go ahead, Mohammed.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for the work we're doing. I wanted to share updates of the things we are doing in Igang as a youth organization. We are affiliated with the boxing and kickboxing in Uganda, and we use it to work with young people from the street who are drug addicts to have a contribution in their community. And what happened during the campaign where they killed a number of boxers and they arrested many young people. They were so frightened to continue with the sports and their contribution because they had unanswered question. So what we've decided, we are engaging UPDF and Uganda prisons and police to start some games together and interact and ask them why all this wrath on the fellow Ugandans. And it is something which is becoming so huge that we are going to do. So if there is an organization which is interested in working with the sports to continue keeping peace, we are more than welcome, because we think as we do other interventions, there is need to take direct interventions to engage these stakeholders, because right now, young people think it is a war or it is revenge. So we want to start a process that talk about changing that thinking. And on Easter, we are hosting UPDF in Iganga for our first engagement boxing fight. I can share the details with Ivan, but also I can see many partners here that we can work with. And there is a huge opportunity in using boxing and kickboxing. That's what I wanted to share, because it takes less budget, it takes less energy, but it yields much, because we'll be working directly with youth from street and these institutions, because they already appreciate the sports, they use the sports, they invest in huge budgets, and they take it as a model to keep peace with the community.
All right, thank you, Mehdi. And that's a good insight. Anyone else? I know maybe some of you may not be seeing the hand feature. You could just unmute your microphone. And like Mehdi, did you say you want to say something? And we shall give you the floor. About the issue of using sports as a way of fostering peace, I think it's a good way to go. And it's something we need to, find a way of working with. Let me have Alex. Alex, please unmute.
Yeah, thank you so much for the program. Okay, for me at the piece, it's not like I will also say, it is not that the election process is comprised of demonstrations, strikes, and violence as a must, but the current government has taken this as the only means they can remain in power. We can take an example here in our district here in Ntungamo. It's so unfortunate. Take an example whereby a minister shot down a man and was given a bail just in a day. But when you talk of these oppositions, the opposition leaders and other people that are following the opposition, they are still in bars for no reason but for supporting opposition. So we are seeing like the government has taken this as the only way it can remain in power. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I don't know whether Kamgisha wanted to say something. So Kamgisha want. Yes, Godfrey, go ahead. I think, Godfrey, you're raising your hand by mistake. I'll look for another one. The hand feature is actually one of the options you can use to, to raise your. Godfrey, go ahead.
Maybe I can respond on some of the issues that have been raised.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much, and I appreciate everyone for these issues. Ken said that the religious leaders are not involved in these processes. I should agree with you, Ken, because even in one of the engagements that we have between stakeholders, that we had with the stakeholders in Wakiso, one of the religious leaders said that the clerics have somehow become being targeted by security and government. And he was so specific. He said the Catholic. I don't know how true that is. Maybe it is someone that we can kind of investigate into so that we do not, we prevent future escalation. But I think they are so very important, especially when it comes to, peace building processes, because, this is the message most of them, most of the religions do spread. So I think if the religious leaders are, brought at the center of these processes, I'm sure we can have peace in Uganda and Africa at large. Ken, I 100% agree with you that religious leaders can do a wonderful job when it gets to ensuring that peace prevails in our country. Marvin, you said that some of the practitioners are not doing enough to, engage stakeholders. Yes, you could be right. You're right, because actually recently we were having a radio talk show with a conversation with some of the young people, and we were trying to identify some of the early warnings and of course early response mechanisms to identity-based violence. But one of the issues that came up is that the media has been the media participation and influence has been jeopardized somehow, because actually someone was too specific, was that when you tell a media personality to kind of bring on the table some of the sensitive topics, they vividly tell you that some socket. Do you know that means? That you'll shock me, you make me anyway. Maybe Ivan will help me clarify on that, but I'm sure you're getting it. So most of the media personalities are fearful to actually bring these sensitive conversations on table. I also agree with you where you said that young people are not living in isolation. There are so many other people, so many other institutions that are surrounding them and who are kind of influencing their behaviors. We were in Kisenyi recently and we were having a conversation between the youth and of course their leaders. It was a post-election dialogue on non-violence. And one of the issues that came up was a training for the parents. Because the youth do not live in isolation. They think that because of the failure of the parents to nurture, that somehow has contributed to the negative behaviors of the youth in the same area. So they were proposing a training for the parents, and we took note of that. I want to appreciate
Nashiba, I think we've lost you.
work. You are using sports, some other people are using art, others are using, talent, and, so it is always important for, each and every one of us in our respective areas of operation to kind of make a contribution to peace in Uganda, to make sure that we also find amicable means of dealing with the kind of issues which which bring tension, which can which can cause escalation into violence. Talk of the injustices. Are they perceived? Are they real? You know exactly where you come from, and you can close your eyes to reflect. Do we have social justice for everyone? Are all people able to access the opportunities as citizens in this country, or they need to base on certain, certain identity, certain, where they come from, their religion, you can always reflect on that. Talk of the inequalities. Is everyone equal? Can everyone be given the same audience and the same, be listened to equally? Can everyone be given equal opportunity? So those are the things that we need to, to harness in most of these conversations, because these are the issues that most of the times escalate violence among our young people, but also not forgetting about the kind of challenges that we face as a country, the governance question, the electoral processes, the electoral laws, the kind of reforms that we need in this country, to mention, but a few. One of our colleagues talked about government taking violence as the only means to, to cling on power or to sustain power. We've been observant of late, like Ivan said when he was starting his conversation, that they had predicted the young people to be violent during this electoral process. But we've been observant enough that young people instead are more of victims than necessarily perpetrators of violence. And according to the research that was conducted by GAPS Uganda, it indicates that less than 5% of the youth participate in violence. If you see any violence, just know that is less than 5% of the youth. What does that mean? That means that over 95% of the youth are actually peaceful and resilient, only that their success stories are rarely captured. So we need to listen more from those young people who are resilient, who are peaceful, who have done the amazing work in the area of peace and making things right in our respective communities. So, but also that means, that doesn't mean that they are not cognizant of the issues that are happening in their surrounding. Of course, they are cognizant and they're doing everything possible, though amicable, to ensure that they make things right in their communities and of course the country at large. I even know that some of the issues that have been raised, I hope I've responded clearly. So back to you, please.
Thank you, Nashiba. Thank you, Nashiba, for that elaboration. For those that have joined us, we are tweeting under the hashtag Ugandan Youth for Peace. So the 4 is with the 4. So you can be able to share your voice in there. That young people are in for peace, and that means that the state itself has to be peaceful. You have heard from Nashiba that the aspect that violence has been institutionalized. How do we deal with some of those things? I would like to have some more submissions. I see Alex. Please, Alex, unmute your microphone and go ahead and say what you want to say. Alex, go ahead. You can also use our chat box. If you have a question there, please chat it, put it in the chat box. We'll be able to read it. But also, you can be able to register your details in the chat box, your name, your details, your phone number, and where you come from, an organization of something, so that we can be able to track the people that have been able to participate in this engagement. Alex, is your hand up by mistake?
Yes.
Is it not? Yes, go ahead.
No, someone was trying to say something, but I think their network is poor.
Yes, I think I want to add on something. I think there is a huge problem of ignorance about the community responsibility And young people, when I talk about young people, I talk about those on street, like in the community. They have not done a lot to know how to sensitize people civically. And I think the challenge comes from the low information from civic education. So I think if we can design more programs that encourage young people to take the role of sensitizing each and every person in their community, because we have seen work where like the lower elections had a big impact that young people were just voting for the umbrella, and they had a massive effect on doing that. The question is, were the people that were elected have substance? Can we use their influence as young people to civically think about their effect in the community? So I know every organization is doing some work with the youth. I think we need to do a lot of capacity building so that young people can be able to use their platform. If, for example, a chapati maker can influence more than 10 youth every day. So I want to make on that side that we can put it on our agenda as organization whenever we're empowering young people to make sure like they're empowered civically and they have the skills to sensitize others in the community. Because if we get a civically empowered community, then it means like everyone knows what to do, knows their responsibility. So that gives us better leadership, which leads us into development and reduce on like conflict that happens after election.
Thank you. Thank you, Mehdi. Mehdi hints on two important issues earlier. He said that the aspect that we have had boxers being killed or being criminalized in the past is dwindling the aspect that young people are shunning away from the sport, because then the narrative is that it's a sport that as nurturing maybe criminals of the sport. How do we deal with some of these things? But also about the nature of civic sensitization. So here I'm talking about civic responsibility and also civic rights, which we have been able to observe as people have been able to participate. But one of the fundamental ones is that we have civic duty. We have those that are able to account. Now, we are very unfortunate that Afande is still closing the meeting. It's just a message. And some of these questions were the reason why Afande Waswa, who is a deputy director at counterterrorism, was a very good panelist for this engagement, is also part of the national engagement forum where issues around radicalization fall. So I wanted to ask him the aspect that when young people are criminalized this far, are we building a country that is driving peace, or are we building a country where we have criminals that we know are young people? Some of these questions were directly going to him, and it's unfortunate that she's not been able to join us. Hopefully she joins us in the middle of our engagement, but we can still proceed to be able to engage. Anyone with a hand up and express reflection, what is happening in your communities, because we want to use this engagement as a national, we want to use the narrative here as a national engagement, and we go and meet the stakeholders. What is important to this engagement is that we as stakeholders at national level, we hold on to the vision because we carry the youth manifesto as a youth voice. So there are so many things that have been highlighted that are part of the voice that young people already made in their manifesto. So we have a duty to engage on these issues at national level. But there are certain things that are occurring right now: the kidnaps, the arrests, the betrayed, arrested, probably the deaths that are coming in. We want to hold the state accountable so that we also try to address some of these things. If it's about political participation, what is the nature that we must be able to push young people towards to? course, we know that young people are not criminals, but young people are always used as instruments in most cases, and it's not necessarily so any questions and reflections are welcome. Just put up your hand. I could be able to unmute your microphone. Hello. We also want to listen from your community. What is happening in there? So I see Robert. Robert, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope I'm good. Yesterday, I with my community before I came, and the number one issue of this dialogue that we don't down to the villages now, and the biggest issue here is the issue of the knowledge gap. About 10 people understand that exist.
Robert, we have a feedback from you. Robert, we have a feedback from your side.
Oh,
We have a feedback.
It's not from my side. I have.
No. Okay.
Can I proceed?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes, so I said that about 10 people that I talked to, these are land fellows. They have gone to school, but they don't even understand that the youth dialogue is existing in the country. And then
go ahead. Godwin, your network is a bit. Godwin's network.
Someone's phone is having that noise.
Yes, Robert, go ahead.
Yes, so they claim, number one, they vote, but they don't see the impact of their vote. Number two, when they vote into office, these young men go there, 1 year or two, they get hungry to collect some money and make a living. Because there is too much money in these positions, they end up demanding to get rich, demanding to help their people, and they forget about the people who put them there. Just point, for example, I remember Honorable Chagulanye when he ran for MP of Kawempe area. He used to campaign. Yes, Chad. Yes, thank you for the correction. He used to campaign door to door on foot, but then after he went into office, he never went back to the people on foot. He did not consult the people that he only started to consult a certain class of people. So I remember even when I was in Kampala during that time, certain people in his constituency were complaining that what is happening with these people, you can consult us and share with us your ideas to get into office, but you cannot come back to us. It is difficult to go door to door, yes, but can you at least collect meetings per village and hear their concerns? But all that is not happening. So people just conclude that, again, of the area where I am, that these people just bring these ideas to get in there, make the resource for themselves and their families, and forget about them.
Thank you, Robert.
If there is what can be done to solve this knowledge gap? And some of these MPs, now this is from my side as Robert, some of these leaders we are, for example, the youth should also be sensible enough to know that even though Robert is in the umbrella movement, does he really have the mind of the country? If Robert wants to change the country as an MP of Gulu, do I have what it takes to think beyond a changing government? Because if I remove the incumbent member of parliament, then what? What am I bringing on board? Am I willing to go to the incumbent and say, can you hand over your plans to me that you had hoped to do in the next time if you had won? And we see how to harmonize it with our plans. And then the government not be run by only political members. We also have the technical people, we have the community people. But question is, how many of these political leaders even go to the offices of these technical persons, maybe at the districts, to find out which projects do they want to run, to find out which projects are lagging and why are they lagging? None of these members of parliament, save a few examples, are able to do these things. But they are representing us in Kampala, they are representing us at council, they are representing us everywhere. So can these young people, learned or not, be wise enough also to say, okay, our people have these concerns, can we take them? Like recently, there was an issue in parliament which was concerning the local people being evicted from mining areas. That was a good concern of the local area, but how many of these leaders are doing that? How many of these leaders are also teaching people about the laws that we have in this country? For example, we all know, like for instance, we have issues of domestic violence, we have issues of physical development, but how many people even know about the land laws in this country? People's land is being grabbed, but the locals do not even know about the land law. They do not know about their rights over their land. That knowledge gap.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.
That is the biggest problem we have. Highlights of the rural.
Thank you, Robert. I just saw Tony. Tony, you wanted to say something? Tony, your hand has been up for a while. Okay. Robert, your hand is still up. Tony, your hand was up.
Hello. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
We are losing you.
Thank you
Tony,
for
we are losing you.
organizing
Maybe
this meeting for us to engage and discuss a few. Hello, can you hear me?
now go ahead.
Hello.
Tony, go ahead.
Okay. So my point was
Hello, Tony.
saying that
Tony.
political landscape, first of all, in Uganda to engage in this political. Hello?
Okay, that's where your network is. I think stay in that position.
Tony, your network has issues. Your network, kindly step out. Your network has issues.
So can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, now you're clear.
Yeah, so I was saying that because of some of the restrictions and the unfairness that has been put on young people, I think they have not been that to exercise their rights in terms of participating. So I think it all starts with a system that we need to we need to engage the youth more.
Tony, just put
To
your
sensitize
submissions in the
them,
chat
let them
section.
know their rights. Okay,
Tony.
let me do that then.
Yeah, let's have Mark. Mark, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Now, me, I have few concerns. Previously, Robert was complaining about Bobi Wine not going back to the community. One thing you guys should remember: this election has been unique. It has been affected by COVID-19. Remember, we had issues of curfew, the movement of people, the dialogues. So the issues of political leaders not coming back to your communities amid this period. Kindly just pick it from us. It was almost about COVID-19. And then another thing that I would like to react on, it's by what she said about curfew. Previously people have been using curfew as an excuse that it promotes security.
What will happen?
But
Go ahead.
But
Mark, go ahead.
Someone should.
Mark, unmute and go ahead. I think we lost him. Mark Muganga. Yes, go ahead. Someone was interrupting.
Okay, now I was going to refer to what Good said, Nakabili, about the curfew. The government has an excuse that it promotes security. But to be honest, many young people's economic activities have been hindered. Because imagine someone who makes chapati, imagine someone who sells street food. They do their street work always in the evening. I don't know how best we can advocate for the removal of curfew as young people. You get? I agree with dialogues, always having dialogues in the way to go, but to some extent you feel like maybe we should go more than that. You get? And also, I'm happy that Wise will be joining us shortly, because I think these issues of arresting young people, I think we need more motivational engagement with these security officers. I don't know how can the host of this meeting can really influence for that. Because many people have been tortured. Someone has a family, has relatives to take care of, but are being arrested for more than a month. Really? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that elaborate. But maybe you talked about that we need to do more than dialoguing. What would be your idea of more than dialoguing? Mark, if you could just elaborate on that, because you're trying to find a way forward or recommendations.
Yeah, I think now we should maybe advocate for one-on-one talks. You get? As it is now, Waiswa will be joining us. From Waiswa, can we meet the head of the security in Uganda as young people? We share our concerns with him. You get? That kind of thing. Moving to the higher level, because now we are down, but we should move higher to the higher level at least. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mark. Solomon, please enable your audio and say something. Solomon, if Solomon is not on, I think Robert has a rebuttal to make to Mark. Go ahead, Robert.
Yes, thank you so much. Again, Mark, thank you. Concerning Bobby Wine, I was very clear it was not about this current election. We all know of curfew. My concern was that after engaging with certain people in the previous election as member of parliament, not as a presidential aspirant, that is where my concern is. The COVID thing I understand, but again, still within on the point of COVID, I see also young people are so heavily affected, also in the transportation sector. Again, where I live here, many young people have these small scale businesses, electronics, name them, but they do their purchase from Kampala. Now, these people to travel to Kampala, now the price of transport has been doubled. But when you go to a bus terminal, a bus station, and see how these people conduct themselves, there is no actually half the bus. In most cases, these buses are 3/4 from the stage, but when they get on the road, they get to full capacity. So I do not understand why we are charged double the price, especially on public transport buses per se, when that is affecting, number one, the incomes of the people. The profits are going to depreciate and people cannot save, and which means that they cannot reinvest in their businesses. And I have been here seated and seeing businesses closing, and you ask them why, because they cannot refuel their businesses.
Robert,
And I've all, yes, please.
let's first hear from Drate.
Yes, please.
Drate, Jaffa. Unmute and make a submission. Drate Jaffa, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, are you getting me?
Yes, we are.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to have some, I just want to add some few things on what Max said. Max talked about COVID, this election being very unique because of COVID. But one thing I want to put very clear here is one, this election was not very unique. COVID was only used by government actually to disrupt opposition candidates. For example, looking at where I come from, the region that I come from, West Nile, candidates of opposition's campaign were disrupted while the campaigns of the ruling government were not disrupted. So are you telling me COVID was only for the oppositions or what? So there was nothing unique about the COVID being in this election. Therefore, I say, let's not use COVID by saying the election of this year was unique just because of COVID. No, it was only used by government to disrupt the campaigns of other opposition candidates. Two, Mark also talked about young people, that young people need more sensitization to understand the dynamics of elections and so forth. But first of all, government suspended many organizations that were supposed to carry sensitization, voter educations. Now, how can people understand all this? How can the young people understand their role in politics when organizations that were supposed to sensitize them, organizations that were supposed to empower them, organizations that were supposed to give them information are suspended? So this election was definitely without people understanding how they are going to vote and who they are going to vote. People only voted because there was money. Government made sure, first of all, government came up with with locking down, and after the lockdown, of course, people were hungry. Now, when you give someone 20,000, when you give someone 30,000, when you give someone 50,000, the person will definitely vote for you. Therefore, the issue of sensitization, government needs to leave the organizations that are supposed to sensitize people, the organizations that are supposed to give voters education to people to operate. This is a free country. This is where citizens need to understand their role. But now, if citizens are not given that opportunity to understand their role, if citizens are not given the opportunity to know what their government is, how best are they going to decide on their own now? Two, Robert also talked about how many young people know about the laws. First of all, for this one here, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to blame government on this. I'm still going to look at the young people themselves. How many young people are ready to learn? How many young people are ready to know? If you ask a young person how many times he has been at the sub-county to know what is there at their sub-county or at their district. Many young people are not willing to even go and ask their cows. Many young people are not willing to go and ask their district leaders to find out what is happening or what are the projects that are currently being run at our districts. Many young people are not willing to ask these questions. Many young people are not using the smartphones that they have in a positive way. Many of our laws are there online, but how many young people are there to get these laws, to understand the laws of Uganda such that they use these laws positively? So for this, Robert, I want to say that it's us as young people to first of all look at all the avenues before asking other people. How can you, first of all, put yourself in front of the country by saying, yes, what can you do for this country? Not that what the leaders can do for us. So this is briefly what I can say on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Is there anyone else who wants to
Like,
say something?
there is a lot of chats which are not read, and I think the moderator, you should be reading some of the written things in the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to the chat now. That's
Okay,
why I
thank
was asking if there was anyone.
Yeah, maybe I can make mine verbative that I had put in the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
Like this Mohammed again, I agree with everyone. We need to do million things as young people to make a contribution. And what I believe in, which is even has evidence that we can trace, the lower elections, if you follow, like the umbrella team was getting so many young people taking leadership because the country decided, because of the frustration that the top elections were not fair to them. And you found out, like in most lower leadership, like we have many young people have come in. That means young people have capacity if we are not putting them into the mode of lamenting, waiting for the government. So as the civil society do the organization, I think we need to use the rubber double style as the new president was using, to make sure like every young person, if given the right information, if you give a young person information about civic education, what they can do, there is a lot we can achieve because young people have achieved. What I see right now, the government is willing to hold on power using all desperate means. For example, COVID is true. I'm a public health specialist. I work with the district. I know COVID is true, but government also maximize and manipulated people using that as a mechanism to hold on to power. The question is, we have more than 70% young people, and they are willing to do something. They have the right information, the right and the right approach to do it and win without causing chaos, because this is a conference to talk about peace. So the question that we are trying to answer, how do we engage young people in doing million things to create a position of fighting for power, but in a peaceful way, because we don't want to sell this country into violence because it will cost us a lot. That's why I agree with everyone, but the ultimate thing that we need to do, everyone, is to make sure like we give these young people the right information, help them to come up with better methods of doing things. I know dialogue works, but there are other mechanisms we can do. For example, we can go as NGOs and meet parliamentarians and share our agendas. What I realized, the things end when we talk like this. Our resolutions, we have better resolutions, but we are always discussing them as NGO heads in these conferences. The young person down there doesn't have a feel of what we are discussing right now. He's acting on emotions of what these people have had. So we need to go down and find ways. You remember, you people, when we were young, we used to play soccer and you could get Rivera and some straws and you create a ball and you go create rules in the field and you have a beautiful match. And that's how we have been able to have these wonderful, talented footballers and kickboxers in the world. So there is always a mechanism because young people are so creative. We have the time, we have the determination, but we will not surface with the state if we have not organized ourselves. It is going to end up a war, which will cause us a lot. So I think everything we are discussing is right, but how do we trickle it down in a youthful way that will make even a chapati seeker know, like, know the role that person as a prostitute somewhere, to know what she has to do, because there are so many people are buying these prostitutes. Maybe a prostitute can convert even police officers and talk to them. So I think
thank you, Mehdi.
it's why we go down. Thank you so much.
Let me cut you over. Maybe for your information, today we're having various youth from various universities. We have youth leaders from Bara University, Makerere University, Chambogo University. We have National Chess College in Mubende. We have several young people from different universities. So definitely whatever we're dialoguing on today has an outreach. I wanted to go through some of the submissions in the chat section pretty fast because there are quite a lot. I'm seeing Patricia saying that young people are just fed up on the wrong information, so they tend to react, and in so doing, it's just violence that comes out of it all. So Patricia thinks that there's a lot of wrong information. I'm seeing Gift saying you can't confine young people to academics when these issues press them to. So this is a reaction to someone who was saying that young people should first study and leave politics alone. Thank you so much for the conversation. This is Kandao. Up to now, I'm still wondering why the rioting of youth is in smaller portions of the country, especially the central region. I don't know how true this is, but maybe someone can react to that. Elgon says that the rioting is especially in the central region. Sylvia is saying, I've been following the campaign trend, particularly the presidential election. Many young people who were in opposition side were arrested and not charged in court, and some are still in prison even up to now. Some arrests are in broad daylight by armored men and a number and drone vehicles. I think, Ivan, it's very important to have someone from government to engage the youth on some of these things, to be very, very balanced. I'm seeing Tony who said that he's happy to be part of the dialogue. Abasa saying government is reaching on its highest peak of failure, so they have nothing to do. This is Godin. Someone else is saying what you're saying about Honorable Chagulanyi is not true. He went back to the people until the incident of Arua, where his movements were restricted. There are so many in the church you can go and read. There's Allen saying that young people have too much idle time at hand due to the unemployment, so they end up participating in violent acts. But also the security forces are angry, which is because of the blood during campaigns. When we see security people, we assume that they are trained to shoot, to kill. Something there they're trying to put up. You can go to the chat section. I think we shall come back to the chat section. I don't know whether there's someone who has raised their hand, but maybe I'll read this one. Hillary saying, me, I think young people are the future generation. You shouldn't even think about this. Young people are the future generation. So when they see a wrong idea that the regime is doing, they must stand against it because it will have an impact on their future. This can be in form of peaceful demonstration, which the government thinks it's wrong. Unfortunately, the shameless regime will not listen, but will have to retaliate. The government must look through this and come up with better programs, with better deliverance to the youth, to save the youth of Uganda. This is quite an insight. Innocent saying it's quite unfortunate that the government, which claims to be democratic, can do anything harmful to its citizens, provided it can postpone its failure. The professionals of justice can no longer justify their acts, they're unable to defend their decisions. This shows how tainted our reputation is as of now. That is innocent. Let me have the last one. Last one from the chat section. Is there anyone who wants to respond to something? Okay, maybe Ivan, I'll hand back to you. Someone here reacting to COVID saying that the Ministry of Health itself is a joke. Try and even forget COVID. Yes, go ahead.
Should I talk?
Yes, go ahead. We got.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Alex.
Okay, thank you. Then again, to me, we as a youth, I don't see any significance of the youth MOP as in the region, because the region is taking much, because it is large itself. Take an example whereby a region, it is almost 30 districts, and more so to add on that, these youth MOPs, when they go to the parliament, they work for their respective areas or constituencies, where they think after maybe the term has ended, they will come contesting as the full youth area MOP, not youth this time, but area MOPs. So this was our chance, since the youth were favored and were taken as the most percentage that we contribute much to the nation, to demand for our intentions. Then when I talk of the coming of Chagulanyi in the active politics, in fact, we should appreciate we the youth the coming of Chagulanyi in this politics of 2021, because they have awakened the government to know that the youth also exist and they contribute much to the nation affairs and politics. And so that is the reason why they are always talking about the youth, that they are bringing the chaos and the violence, which is not the case, because they have now valued the impact of the youth to the nation. But also, I want to implement on this, on how you can improve on the dialogue, because this dialogue, it is like now directing, it is not being achieved by many people youth around in the villages and the what. So for me, I would suggest the idea like you always organize for the physical talks with the concerned people in the government, and actually they would also organize meetings with the youth as the parliament does, because we contribute much, so they need to consider us in their plan, and also we'll see the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Someone mute your microphone. Maybe Alex, just to respond on the issue of youth MPs, I would want also to cut some slack for them. One, like you say, yeah, the regions are too big. For example, take an example of the female national representative. They have to cover the whole country. How are they going to represent? But also, I think with the youth MPs, there's a problem with how they are voted. You know, they are voted using an electoral college. They use delegates to vote them, and they're only accountable to those delegates. Meaning, if you're not part of that system that creates delegates that vote youth MPs, this youth MP won't be accountable to you, because they are only accountable to their electorate, and their electorate is that electoral college. Me personally, I think it's high time we move away from the electoral colleges where youth MPs are voted by a few people, few individuals, but also could also look at increasing the number. Yes, Alex?
And in fact, then to add on your point, I was among those colleges that voted of recent politics of the youth. To me, in my observation, even the way you are saying, like they are at the point, they are engaged with the people that are going to vote for them. It is not even the case, because it's like they are bribing. They are not working for them. They are not working for the colleges. These people that are going to vote them, but they are bribing for the moment. And of which after the elections, you never see them again. because I myself, I voted one, but then I haven't even ever had any idea from him. I think now they have already started working for their districts where they're going to come as the area or constituency MPs. So as you've said, for sure they would engage the whole of the youth in the country to vote for the youth MPs, and in fact they would reduce on the size of the regions so that we can be represented very well in the parliament.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
I don't know whether Jaffa wants to say something. I think the hand raised.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Jaffa.
Yes, I just want to add something on us advocating for reforms in the electoral college kind of thing. Ivan can even testify with me that while we were in Gulu observing the election of the youth MPs, seriously, it's not about the election. It's not about who is going to represent us, but it's about who has given me the money or who has given me more money. So it's definitely something really very bad. To me, I look at as members of the Youth Coalition on Electoral Democracy, we need to advocate for at least a reform in the electoral college kind of thing for the youth MPs. Otherwise, if this continues, then the kind of MPs we are going to elect to represent us as young people are not going to be people that have young people at heart, people that are not, who are going there, not only because of the people, but they are just going there because of their own issues, not to represent actually the interest of the young people. I therefore recommend that as Youth Coalition on Electoral Democracy, we need to advocate for at least a reform of this electoral college, whereby at least, if possible, it should be open. This election should be open for the young people to vote. Anyone who is below 30 years should vote the youth MPs, rather than saying we only need the electoral college. And two, I also want to recommend that this kind of engagement is really very important. If we can really bring it lower, if we can take it to the grassroots, if we can have regional meetings of such engagements, it will really be something very good. Physical regional meetings, if we can prioritize on that, we'll gather really more information from also the grassroots, not only those ones at our level here, but also let's try to see if we can go down, if we can go to the regionals, if you can go to the districts, if you can go to this, get at least the young people at the grassroots, those ones at sub-counties, those ones at division levels, those ones at district levels. Then we share with them the information. Let's try to get feedback from them also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaffa, for that elaborate submission. I'm seeing here Innocent Norman, you're saying that we will not realize the change we need if at all we remain inconsistent. We need to demand for justice every day and every moment. That's how we can restore the dignity of our motherland. Uganda Youth for Peace. Ronnie, Limo, a lot of young people are used as tools. They're always engaging themselves in dirty politics, which has costed the lives of many young people. Can't we as young people wake up and engage ourselves in clean politics? Ourselves in clean politics. We're losing many young people in this umbrella wave. I can see Nelson is glad to be part of the meeting. Like Ivan said, we're tweeting with the hashtag Uganda Youth for Peace. 4 is figure. So you can also follow or tweet with us on Twitter. We're also airing the meeting live on Facebook. I think you can see on your screens. So you can also follow that. But also, I've had Jaffa raising so many issues, and I think I can respond to some. The issue of engagement, for example, us here at Africa Leadership Institute, one of our main objectives is to hold leaders accountable, and we have programs that are doing that. So we have a platform which is called the MP Scan. You can access it through mpscanug.com. Now, on that platform, You can engage your MP directly. You can ask them questions directly. It's one tool we've put up to help citizens engage leaders directly. Even youth MPs, if there's anything that you want to engage them directly, something you want to report from the constituents, you can use the mpscanug.com. We shall soon launch a mobile app as well that will link you direct to your MP. So these are things that we're trying to do to create, to bridge actually the gap between leaders and the citizenry. And I think we can do better, even us as youth leaders or the youth-led organizations. We need to do more in bringing the young people in the societies or communities closer to their leaders, because we believe that change can only happen at policy level. If we're looking at meaningful change, we're looking at inclusive change, it has to be mainly at policy level. And now policies are created by leaders, either in parliament or local councils. Therefore, for any change or any impact we are trying to make at the end of the day should be able to influence policy. That's why I would even want to recommend that at the end of this dialogue, if we can have a resultant paper that we can come up with that can foster policy, like Jeff had said, then there's need to have an amendment in the election of youth MPs, really. We should all, as young people, be part of the decision making on who should be our youth MP, not a few members in the electoral college who can easily be bribed. By the way, the smaller the number, the easier for someone to bribe that particular electorate or the electoral college. I'll read one more chat from Tony, who says that as a country, Uganda, we are on a trial where the regime sees losing power. It's a trap to follow up their crimes they did while in power. So in order to be summoned, they're staying in power as an opportunity to protect their wealth and families. This is something from Solomon. Someone is asking me which application. Yes, like I said, go to your browser, put in MP scan. I'm going to share the link within the chat. It's mpscanug.com. So when you go to mpscanug.com, look for your MP. You can engage your MP directly. Now, if we realize that after like maybe a day your MP has not responded to your concern, we can reach out to your MP to make sure that they respond to your concern. Then the app we are developing is called the MP Scan as well, but this is a mobile application which has not yet been launched. But for now, the MP Scan UG website is working and you can use it to access your MP and air out any of your grievances. So that's the link I've shared within, I think, yeah, even Martina shared it. So you can use it to follow your MP and hold them accountable. I think I can call back Ivan and hand over the moderation back to you. Ivan? Ivan?
Thank you very much, Marvin, for helping out here. And thank you to you who have been able to participate. One thing I can say is that I've got a text from Afande Waswa. He tells me he's in a very urgent meeting. But one thing that he promises me is that we get these issues and we have a pre-engagement at the headquarters. So that means that all the issues that we have discussed here are going to inform an engagement that I will invite some of us to participate in at the headquarters, especially those that are linked to security. Also, technically, I hear some of the issues, a policy of a sort, just like I promised that we must find reason on how we engage on some of these issues. One thing that is true is that we shouldn't keep the youth voice silent. The young people in this country are looking up to some of us, and probably some of us are the voice at the national level. So there are certain things that cannot be made, for example, in Arua, unless someone speaks about them at the national level. So we should find reason to find ways on how we work in a very systematic approach where we can have our voices being heard more than before. At this moment, I don't know whether I call back Nashiba to reflect on some of these issues to kind of put them into aspect, but also give us some of the key highlights of the conversations that are being made. And then, okay, I see a hand. Ogatai, please go ahead and make your submission.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. This is Ongatai. I just want to make some 5 submissions regarding this subject we are discussing now, because I see there is a very big challenge with the government in terms of improving its communication in the area of open media and journalists that are everywhere. We find there are a lot of contradicting information, and we are always on the TV, we are always on the social media, we are watching whatever they are doing, and we actually confirm these people are not coordinated in their coordination from what we know on ground. I also see a challenge in regard to economic empowerment. The youths need to be empowered financially. Youths need work need tools. Without the tools, youths cannot do anything. But in a situation where you see a program like Mioga, which is again requesting money from the youth to contribute to participate in it, this is really a very big challenge. I look at the policy framework for the youth policy of Uganda. It has not been put effectively into action. For example, in terms of financing and the supporting, it is operationalization, because the youth policy has short-lived its existence because it is not aligned to the government development program. I don't see the relationship, the linkage between the youth policy and the MIOGA. I don't see the link between the youth policy and the youth livelihood fund. I don't see the linkages anywhere in terms of supporting and functionalizing this operation. We are also a bit very disappointed with the way the government is doing work. When you see very many young people are in prison, they are injured, they have a lot of injuries and wounds, we are really not happy. What affects the young people in the central region, in the western, in eastern, it's also affecting us who see. It is actually very painful to see your son or your brother being tortured like that innocently. And I think this is some of the things that is raising temperature among the young people to take action. You cannot beat somebody in that manner as if he has no life. He has a right to live and to make a decision. But in Uganda, we are taking things in a very negative way. Everything, you can't make a communication. You don't sleep in your house. You can't say something, the next day you are in prison. They slap on you, any charge that they can come across. But these are all proxy. Things are not working in that way. Imagine during election, the civic education van was in a tour. They were moving like that. They don't stop. They are just communicating while going. And this is a program that they were supposed to educate the people. So the preparedness of the government towards reaching the young people is really very important. And in most cases, let this program be planned and implemented by the young people. You find an RDC is implementing a program with selected people of a certain party, which is really not fair in Uganda. And this is what is causing a lot of violence in the country. Let us try to improve. Let us try to at least not to oppress the young people. And for me, if this is handled and the policies are really effectively implemented, some things can improve. But whatever we are seeing, we see a lot of challenges ahead of us because things are not balanced. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ivan.
Thank you very much, Obatai. And I think that, yes, the youth policy has outlived, and the framework, the constitution talks about every after a period, the electoral college system, and then other policies. So we need to come and engage on this one. But you also raise issues around the economic challenges. And for me, this is the important thing that keeps coming up, that young people are distressed. We came out of COVID, young people had lost jobs. We went into an election. So, and then we have scenarios where a lot of joblessness has increased, the frustration, the anger is increasing, and now more anger is even more increasing. So what is the state of situation that are we moving into as a country? But I want to hear from you as people here. How do we make government? How do we, at this moment, what mechanisms can we hold on to government, understanding that the young people are a critical stakeholder right now? We want to see a sort of a supplementary budget that is fused into addressing the joblessness, the incomes are dwindling, the issues that young people's capital is lessening each day, but also the environment, the curfew, and how it affects youth incomes is one of the things that I want to hear going forward. Thank you. I have Gilbert here. Gilbert, you have your hand up. Okay, Nashiba, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much.
Nashiba.
And I want to appreciate, yes, please, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I want to appreciate participants for these grateful insights, but I also have to I need to respond to some of the few issues which have been raised. One of our colleagues talked about the low information that, for example, the young people did not vote from an informed point of view. I totally agree with you, but also I think if there is, for example, a deliberate effort to deny young people access to information, why don't you find other alternative means? The way you search for football news, the way you search for celebrity gossip news, I think it should be the same way. You should be searching for this relevant information, which is pertinent to the progress of our communities and of course the country at large. The second issue that I took note of, it is kind of also related to the issue of information, is involving the private sector. Someone talked about the chapati makers and other non-conventional actors. I totally agree with you that even the private sector should be engaged in these conversations. For example, I'm sure everyone was able to realize how their border guy or the nearest border state were able to speak about Bobby Wine's vehicle with passion. I think if that is the spirit they can use to kind of disseminate the pertinent information, the information which is relevant to us, to our communities. I think that would be of hope. Robert talked about, Robert said that youth don't see the impact of their vote because the politicians forget about them. I want to think that to make difference, you should not be a politician. Instead, you should be a responsible citizen. For example, a politician won't, for example, it doesn't take to be a politician to, for example, clear the bushes around you, not to deter the rubbish in your surrounding. We should also be a little bit responsible. I think it starts with us, the individuals. And most of the times it is us, the people, who go to the politicians and ask for money from them. So someone will feel that they are not accountable on their obligations because they've given you money, you've gone to them and asked for money. So they feel they are not responsible to, you know, any kind of services which you need from them because they think you've already received your share through that bribe. Mark talked about us going more than the dialogue, and he said that we need to engage at higher level engagements. I totally agree with you, Mark, because previously we've been conducting engagements, like I told you, with stakeholders, and some of them were, for example, at a lower level. But for example, a policeman and also would vividly tell you that I'm getting order from above. I also receive orders from above. So that means there is need to kind of influence where that order is, if we are to have tangible actions which are effective to enhance young people's meaningful participation. One of our colleagues also talked about transport charges being high. To me, this takes us back to curfew, because previously a taxi guy would, you know, work up to even beyond midnight. But nowadays, they want to accumulate all that money they used to earn then before maybe before 4 p.m. So that means that they will put, you know, higher charges on you, the passenger, because they want they don't want to be caught up by the curfew. Drake talked about COVID-19 being used as a tool, but also government curtailing the operations of the NGOs or the practitioners who are supposed to do water education. I want to agree with you, Drake, and I think this is the time for, you know, some of NGOs, civil society, and other practitioners to have an honest conversation with the government, because I think we shouldn't be pulling ropes. Instead, we should be complementing each other's efforts. But instead, you see sometimes civil society being targeted. You will see, you previously had their office premises being attacked. The individuals, it is being, you know, kidnapped and, you know, beaten up and all that. And we are not short of examples. And I think we need an honest conversation between civil society and government. One of our colleagues talked about the lower leadership. Was talking about the recently elected youth leaders, youth councillors, and youth chairpersons. When we engaged the youth chairpersons, the newly elected in Wakiso and Kampala, we came to realize that actually they told us that they are playing more of a dormant role. They are not, you know, they are not given platform to serve, you know, to deliver on their mandate. So they were asking for space from church, from, you know, these other local governments. They said they are not being consulted when key decisions are being made. I think we also need to advocate for their active and meaningful participation, so that at the end of the day, their leadership makes a difference. Muhammad talked about young people need to do something and also need to be kind of proactive. Yes, I totally agree with you, my brother, because for me, I think we are our leader, I think we are not so different from our leaders. Unless when we change as individuals, our leaders will not be any different from us, because the way we behave, where we come from, we kind of influence the way our leaders also behave and the kind of actions and decisions which they take for us at the end of the day. But if we decide to become better people, not to be corrupt, not to steal from others, to be fair to others, to coexist and appreciate others, I think we shall produce better leaders. Our communities will, you know, will be having better leaders, because our leaders are a representative of who we are. Someone talked about that the youth MPs are of no relevancy. Actually, we were conducting in one of our engagements with one of the political parties who presented the presidential candidates in the recently concluded elections. One of the representative for political parties said that these interested groups are just existing just to increase the numbers for NRM in parliament. Otherwise, if you try to weigh the kind of impact they create, I think to him and his political party, perhaps, these special interested groups are serving more of the interests of the NRM. COVID-19 now, this is food for thought. It's just, I'm just thinking about it loud. What happened to the increasing numbers of truck drivers who are being checked, who are being infected by COVID-19? Are they still existing? Anyway, that will be a discussion for another day. For now, I want to take it back to Ivan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nashiba. We have hands up. We have Gilbert Alia. Then we'll have James. Then we'll have Sunday to make a reflection. Let's start with James. Let's start with Gilbert. Sorry, Gilbert. Lower your hand. Unmute and then go ahead.
Thank you. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, sure.
Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Kalenje, and I happen to have been participating in the elections of this year, contesting to be a member of parliament to represent my constituency of Uganda North constituency, but things did not come out. I came third out of the 4 people we were contesting. I first of all thank initiators of this discussion, because it is so much fruitful, it is so much good for our country, for Africa, and actually for our own thinking, make sure we have some kind of thinking about our society and how we can organize it to live in it peacefully. First of all, there are some issues I would like to present to the members present in this discussion, because by apologizing to the members.
Gilbert, have we lost you?
For coming in to have. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes. Hello?
Go ahead, Gilbert.
Yes. We have a ground that is favorable for our youth to be heard. If a youth speaks, can this youth be listened to? Or this youth can be only punished, can be searched for? Where is that person speaking from? And is maybe arrested by the state intelligence officers, security officers, because this person has raised an issue which is going to be detrimental to the mission of the government. Ugandans, first of all, I will give an example of Uganda. Ugandans have never recognized the fact that we have a military government, much as we call it a democratic government, but it is a military government when you see what takes place in the country. Everything is militarized. Where youth speaks, the army comes in. Where ABCD is spoken by the youth, we want water, we want to see youth livelihood program working for us here. The army is the one that comes in. When it comes to elections, it is the army that comes in. Polling stations are manned by the army. Rigging elections, it is by the army. Now, a youth will start from which point? Maybe if this youth is also empowered so much so that he can fit in the prevailing condition. This means I'm trying to explain to you, to the members in this discussion, that a youth who is democratic cannot fit in a military government, because the military government will always look at issues that will handle it, that it will work with, as long as it is also military. We want peace first of all, whether through elections, whether through the way we implement our programs. We want a society where everybody can be heard, where everybody can participate in the issues affecting his country. So at the end of it all, that is when we shall realize that the youth is so much important and can determine the future or the present affairs of our country. Number two, I wanted to talk about the issue of the youth themselves being agents of maybe programs that cannot work for our country. For instance, when, for instance, we want to implement some programs in our country, youth are given money. They are given money, and it's not only those ones who have not gone to school, even those who have gone to school who understand the issues we are discussing in this forum we have. They also want money. That is at the end of it all the reason as to why some of them are taken to Chankwanzi. They are registered through the RDCs and DSOs. They are taken to Chankwanzi, and Chankwanzi is called the National Leadership Institute, an institute of the nation where people can be oriented, they can be taught, they can know issues touching their country from. But at the end of it all, you find this is a place where people go for instructions. Please, NRA stroke NRM works in this way. Therefore, we want you to work in this way according to we who came in power, of course, after forcing the prevailing governments of that time to get off the leadership of Uganda. So at the end of it all, you find this youth is given a package, and they come out when they are happy. Oh, for us, they would tell us, for us, we are happy. This government is good. We have been given money. Each one of us was given $1 million of money, and so we are happy. Tomorrow, they are the ones who will be campaigning just because they have been bribed by some amount of money, little amount of money. So at the end of it all, you find that the power of the youth is not actually strong power. It is just the power that is there to favor or to make sure the intentions of the one who tried to empower you go on. If NRM wants to be in power, how can the youth help NRM to be in power? This youth will be given this 1 million, like I have just spoken. When we take them to Chankwanzi, we shall each one of them give them 1 million, and at the end of it all, they will help us. They will campaign for us. They will help us in ABC. Meaning, they will not think on their own. They will think according to the mission and the agenda of the prevailing government, instead of thinking about what can make a new Uganda, what can make a difference in Uganda, what can we do in our country that we have not seen. Is there anything that we have never seen in Uganda and can be done in Uganda? And is it possible? A youth of the current situation, of the current environment, cannot think about that one. They will be thinking in terms of NRAism. Let me talk of that. I don't know how members will pick it. NRAism. The prevailing government wants to be in power. How can we have youth think according to our mission, think according to what we want, think according to how many years we want to spend in power? That is the problem we have in our country, and we still have a big role. I am very sure in this discussion we have youth who are listening to me. I would like to request them. Of course, after requesting them and after picking my message, they go ahead after this discussion to speak to the rest of the youth that they are the future of Uganda. They are the Uganda we want tomorrow. Now, if you want to destroy the Uganda we want tomorrow, you can start today by, of course, thinking according to what the majors, the generals, the lieutenant colonels, the ones. Last time I saw somebody singing Uganda songa mbere, Uganda naenda mbere. That one was actually singing to Ugandans who think we need change, but he was trying to explain to you that because that you people who want change, we are not ready for change. We want to be in power. In 1980, we went to the bush. So as we went to the bush and captured the power in 1986, we still want to kusonga mbele. That is what is in the song, Uganda songa mbele. It is not Uganda, it is the NRA, a songa mbele. So those youth are the ones being talked to by this song. The majors, the lieutenants, the colonels, the brigadiers, and whatever. Actually,
at least you could switch off your video.
Okay, that is why at the end of it all, we end up finding them at the polling stations. Of course, we want free and fair elections, but we can never have free and fair elections where the youth already are threatening that for us, we want a new government. These are the youth. Oh, so we want the new government. Okay. How many youth in Uganda? Over 70% are the youth. They are unemployed and they are voters at the same time. How do we fight them? Let us send our generals to man with this district or this region like that, so that they don't actually, as they have been promising that after 5 years, they don't want the current government to be in power because they want change. Let us send generals. We shall see how to make sure this 70% of the youth does not eject another general from power. So at the end of it all, you find this youth is powerless, has no power at all. When we are supposed to have a youth that is strong, whose voice can be heard, whose making is important to our society, and then we shall have a better Uganda, a better Africa, and of course a better world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilbert, and thank you for standing as a candidate. Probably next time better. James, go ahead, and then we have Lucky.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. Good morning to you all members. My name is James, and I coordinate the activities of the National Youth Advocacy Platform, and I'm very proud and glad to be part of this discussion. Right away, I will start off from a few highlights where Gilbert just ended it. Gilbert was, bringing something very useful to us about the National Leadership Institute, Changwanzi. Yeah, it is something really that is on my side, a trigger. I am wondering whether, for instance, the young people now, as we enter into another 5-year, as we wait for 2026, can we use this National Leadership Institute for, trainings or conducting trainings on leadership for the young people in this country, preparing them for 2026, or even for leadership generally, both at their households, in their communities, and at national level, without any prejudice that these are now becoming NRM probably voters. The second thing that speaks to that also, Gilbert reminds me of the fact that I think there is inadequate civic education in our country, especially on the side of government, but also on the side of the political parties themselves. For instance, I've not really seen how political parties have prepared young people for leadership. I've not heard of any training whatsoever where a political party is focusing on the youth to prepare them for effective leadership. But also, I realized that political parties still have not mobilized for their parties. Very rarely will you find political parties. Hello? Very rarely will you find political parties reaching out to, specific categories of people to join them. I have not actually, in my own right, I have not met any political party to seek for my membership to any of their party. But also, it brings out another aspect to do with the commercialization of politics. Of course, Uganda has been turned into a monetary kind of economy, a monetary kind of environment where money is regarded to be the solver of every problem. You will find someone has had an accident, they will just think of money. Someone has been shot, will be thinking of money. Everything is money, money, money. Even in politics now, it's money. Then you hear people begin on one side and then they pretend as if they are on that side, and eventually they cross, and you hear they have been bought using money, which I find it's very, very awkward. But some of my key points as we look at the post-election dialogue on non-violence, peace, messaging, and political participation, I had put down a few points. First and foremost, I realized that Ugandans, especially young people, are disunited. We are disunited. We do not seem to have the real issues to put across. So we are disunited. Even when the issues are there, we are disunited because we have those sycophants who are just, too cheap. Sorry to use that word. Too cheap that in everything they see an opportunity to just get money and to benefit themselves. They are egocentric as opposed to being addressing issues of a common good. So I think we have a task as young people to work on this disunity. How do we unite ourselves on a cause going forward after this post-election, in this post-election era? It's a good thing that we are discussing, we are having a dialogue on post-election and non-violence means and things like that. But my other question is, are we speaking to ourselves? Do we have, for instance, the current the youth leaders and probably those who have actually been elected part of this dialogue? So much that I am sure whatever we are discussing here is, the leaders are getting a feel of what young people across the country are raising. Now, I think it is now time to work. Time to politicize has come to an end. And I want specifically focus my attention to opportunities that there are for the young people post-elections and post-COVID. For instance, I'm looking at agriculture sector. It was the only sector that was not closed even when we were in lockdown. Can young people begin engaging in the real economy, begin engaging in the agricultural value chain? This does not mean that all of us must go and hold horse, but there are different, segments of the agricultural value chain. Some of the young people are very, are good at setting, are very good at being trendsetters, highly communicative. They are on Facebook, on Instagram. But what are we posting there? Can we post watermelons for sale, for recess? Can we see young people engaged in, input dealing so much that we can actually tap into the opportunities that there are in the agriculture sector? Can we use our IT skills, to spur this, because this sector looks for me as one sector that can employ all of us. As much as we engage the government to implement the national strategy for youth employment in agriculture, we also have a task and we have a role to play. Can we advocate for the opening of the night economy, for instance? Because some of the young people are employed in that sector. The night economy is completely shut down. So those who are doing Uber can no longer earn money. Can we advocate at least for this sector to be open post-election? And very lastly, I would wish to suggest that as we engage, we as much as possible look for possible ways of becoming partners of government. Now that the government that is elected, someone talked about the NRA, the NRM wants to remain in power. Well, side is a side. Without mentioning whichever side I belong to, I know for sure that it is a duty for, I think, every government, I don't know, across the world, wants to keep power. I don't know for what reasons, but every government that is elected wants to keep power. And so it is incumbent on other players to really come up with philosophies, with ideologies that people can buy, but also we need an enabling environment for all actors to play, so much that we do not come to see again in the future this kind of violence that was meted on Ugandans very recently, and that continues, because the larger population, the larger workforce that would be in the production sector is in the prisons. If you went to our prisons and police cells, over 70% of those inmates are young people. These are brothers and sisters. So I think there is a lot that we really need to engage on. through our leaders, government leaders, but also we as an individuals, we have a duty to remain true citizens according to what the Constitution tells us in Article 17, the duties of a citizen. So, Ivan, now I think I can end it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you, James, for the discussions you're putting onto the table. You need to highlight to some of us the national strategy for youth in agriculture. We're hearing it for the first time. Can we have Sunday? Okay, first respond to that, James. Respond to that, James,
Yes.
and then we go to
Government
Sunday.
of Uganda, I think through the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries in 2000, I think 19, they passed a strategy which is called National Strategy for Youth Employment in Agriculture. I am yet to find out, we are yet to engage with the Ministry of Agriculture to see how the implementation mode of this strategy. But I know that there is that document in place. I can actually share it with you shortly after this. But we need to engage a lot more on how they are planning to, roll it out and to implement it to ensure that a lot of young people are employed within the agriculture sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For the young people, you have heard that we have a national strategy for youth in agriculture. I personally did not know. So that puts to the question of how much information do we access, but also how much information is available to us. Sunday, you go ahead, please ask your question or reflection. Lucky,
thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. I have a few around.
Lucky, please go ahead. We have had your hand up for a while.
Hello, are you getting me?
Okay.
Hello.
Do we have Lucky here or no?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Let me give you a few minutes, okay? Then we'll be able to wind up our discussion here. Gilbert, please go. Marvin?
Hello, Ivan. Yes, Ivan. Ivan?
Some youth in Uganda.
Okay. Was it my problem?
There are programs which the government of Uganda has introduced, which are meant to unite the youth. But this union is not in good faith. It is meant to make sure youth are united in order to support the government of Uganda, the current government in power. For instance, somebody made is going to tell us youth life program is there for all the youth in Uganda, and will convince us to give us even a list of the names of the youth who have been supporting the opposition, who are benefiting from the youth livelihood program or youth venture capital fund, which was also introduced by the government. But at the end, we shall find that youth who has joined the program of youth livelihood program has been first of all talked to by the government agents, by the political party in leadership, so that this youth, at the end of it, all supports the government and also campaigns for it after 5 years. That is where the problem is. So the union of the youth, that the government may tell you, that somebody in NRM, that somebody who supports the current government will tell you, is not in good faith. It is meant to gear up political intentions of the current government, of course, which started in 1986. So talking about the unity of the youth government bringing together all the youth, it is not in good, it carries a lot of pretense. It is full of pretense. somebody who is supposed to be thinking very well for the country, for the future of the country, is in youth livelihood program and is telling you it is running very well, when actually it is not running very well, it is not benefiting the people it is supposed to benefit. And then at the end of it, all tells you the government is good, things are not good for all the people of Uganda. By the way, discussants in this program, rather in this discussion, I would like us to say rest in peace to John Pombe Magufuli, the president who has been in power for only 6 years in Tanzania, whom we have lost because he has been an example to some of the, I'm 35 years, but I have learned a lot from him. If I happen to be the president, then I have what I can do for Ugandans from Magufuli. So we have lost a leader, but unfortunately we have remained with the misleaders in Africa and probably the whole world. So there is no good union. If it is there in Uganda, it is not in good faith. We have no good intention united people in Uganda. Thank you.
No? Gilbert, you have something to submit?
Yes, I was saying that
ahead.
somebody talked of unity, that the youth are not united, but somebody else will also come in and tell us that the youth in Uganda are united. Of course, the union they talk of is through the programs of the current government. How can we have youth united to support the current government? That is the union we can talk of in Uganda currently. How can we have youth united in order to support the current government? Then they talk of, let us introduce youth livelihood program. They talk of, let us introduce youth venture capital fund. So that one will bring the youth together. Of course, they tell you 12 youth united, maybe between 12 and 25 like that. That means they are united. But the intention of this union is not good to our country. First of all, they are united in order to see that they end up supporting the current regime. That is the union we can talk about in Uganda. Now, that means it is not a good intention, the union. The union that we can talk about with regard to the youth is not in good faith. We are uniting them. Actually, currently, we can introduce, the government can, fund enough, can introduce another program. Of course, we have been with the Youth Livelihood Program, which they started with in 2016 when President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was sworn in to be the president of Uganda for the 5 years we are still in. Another program can come in for the youth so that they can unite and be given money to use in the several programs, the several development projects. But the intention is to see, can these youth help us, help actually Museveni to gain power again in 2026? That is the intention. And that intention, for me, I don't value it as at all. Because it has no good intentions for the whole nation. It is not meant to help Uganda. I was saying we got some misconnections on because of internet and whatever, I don't know, that we have lost actually a very good leader in Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, whom I would like that the members in this discussion say, rest in peace, Magufuli. He has presented to us a good example, especially we, the youth. I'm 35 years old now. The youth in this discussion can send this message maybe to the rest, even after this discussion, that we have lost a leader and unfortunately remained with misleaders in Africa. Misleaders, whom am I talking of? A leader who can unite youth in order to gain. Youth who can gain something, not for politics, but for their own gain. Where a country can have stabilized the youth, where a country can have employed the youth, where a country can have actually theft in our country, we have issues to do with insecurity. Now, that insecurity is not done by the old men and women of over 80 years old. No, it is the youth. Now, if they are not employed, what can they do? They can opt to go for drug abuses. They can opt to go for sex working. They can go for theft, like we have been seeing. They can issues to do with the murder and whatever. They can opt for that one. So, at the end of it all, we are supposed to have united youth, but who are united not because of politics, but because we want youth to have a certain kind of level of the ground where they can speak, where they can decide, they can employ themselves, where they can, issues of that kind. I wish to thank all the members in this discussion. Thank you.
Ivan?
I think we should be concluding in a few. And Ivan, are you on? Or I can go ahead. Okay, let me go ahead. Thank you for everyone who has contributed. I'm seeing the chat section. We are going to save the chat and all the contributions in the chat and share them with the emails that people registered, so that people have they have a record of some of these discussions we've been having today. Then also the audio version of the meeting will be available for those ones who might need it. The video version will also be available for those few who will ask for it. I would want to say that today's dialogue is really important in that it's high time we started focusing on beyond dialogue as young people. What's the next stage? What's the next step we have to take? Because we can have these dialogues every day, week in, week out. But then what's the next step? That's why I think in collaboration with all these youth-led organizations, the youth that are online today, the various guild governments, as young people, we can now start pushing for policy change. Because in these democratic eras, change can only be achieved at policy level. We can talk, we can do all these advocacies, but as long as there's no change in policy, it's kind of not time wasting, but we end up doing the same thing over and over again. So I suggest we find a way how we can influence policy. For example, at the end of this dialogue, can we come up with a paper? Ivan talked about an engagement with security. Can we go already with a document that has arose from this dialogue so that we have our demands already? And these are the ones we are pushing for. Some of the demands may need even to go beyond security. Maybe they're going to parliament or something. I think that's the level we need to go to as young people. We need to now go to an action-based kind of advocacy so that we have change. Lastly, from my side, I would again encourage you to check out the MP Scan UG website. It's a very interactive tool. For those of you who are interested in holding leaders accountable, you can use it to engage your MPs. You can also use it to share some of the governance issues within your communities. You could be having a community-based organization. You can use the MP Scan to push out your issues. Then also, another thing is, this actually comes from what I had during the session. This platform is completely legal. It's recognized. We are not hiding anything. So all views are welcome. as long as they are tolerant and they push out a message of peace. So whoever participates on this platform should not be worried of anything. It's a completely legal platform that is recognized. We have a transparent way of working. That's why we invite everyone to be part of it. So whoever we invite you people to be part of us, kindly join it without having any fears. It's been a great engagement with very many people. Some of them I'm meeting them online for the first time. Others we've been interacting. We have these discussions almost weekly. We have a topical discussion every week. And this time we fused it with Youth Electro, or rather Coalition for Electoral Democracy and AYDL. And I think it has been very engaging to our platform as well. And I hope this goes on. I'll just invite Nashiba to conclude, give a conclusion, because our time is fast spent. And then I put some of the issues in context. And Ivan will conclude lastly and close the meeting, adjourn it. Thank you, Nashiba.
Okay, thank you so very much, Marvin. I also want to appreciate the participants for their time, but also for their active participation to kind of, share their views, share their issues. That means that we are also being part of, solving a problem, the kind of challenges that we face as young people in this country. We are not necessarily lamenting, because at one point I saw a comment in the comment box that how often shall we be talking and talking and talking? I'm convinced that this talking, these discussions are not in vain. Somehow, somewhere, we are making a contribution. Only that what we need to, be bearing in mind is that advocacy is not an event. It is not a one-day event, but it is a process. We shall keep on engaging. We shall keep on, moving, knocking doors for the concerned stakeholders to make sure that the youth issues are addressed in this country. Otherwise, I want to appreciate everyone for their time, for their opinion, but also as a YDL and the coalition, we shall continue empowering the young people. We shall continue availing platforms for them to kind of be part and parcel of the governance processes, but also, to take part in the decision-making processes. I want to appreciate Ivan for, this arrangement. And I want to appreciate everyone who is doing everything in their respective capacity to make sure that they make a contribution to the meaningful engagement and participation of the youth, especially this aftermath of the election. Yes, elections are done, so what next? At the end of the day, we have an obligation. Everyone has an obligation, because this is a collective responsibility. We shall not be pointing fingers at the leaders only. For example, the parliament, that they've not done enough, but I think we can also be doing enough at individual level, at institutional level, in our respective capacities, to make sure that our contribution is felt and that it is meaningful. Otherwise, I just want to thank you so much for those great views and ideas. And indeed, I'm sure that with such discussions, we shall, one time, one day, these conversations will continue bearing fruits because at the end of the day, if you have an issue to address, we are not supposed to take, the rough side of it. We're not supposed to be violent in order to address the issues that are affecting us. Instead, it should be through dialoguing and sharing platforms, sharing this with the rest of the stakeholders to make sure that we collectively come up with solutions which are beneficial to every one of us, but also and the country at large. I want to conclude at this very moment by once again appreciating everyone and taking the floor back to Marvin or Ivan. Thank you so very much.
Ivan? Don't know whether Ivan is still with us.
I'm here. Hello?
Yes, Ivan, I wanted
Can you
you
hear
to
me?
conclude and give us a way forward.
Okay. Thank you, Nashiba, for the great discussion and deliberation, but also thanks to the people on the platform. There are so many things that I've come through. There's a lot of insights. There's a lot of reflections, and it's unfortunate that some of them that were key as security were not able to have a Fande Waswa to answer them. But he has told me that, just like Marvin says, that we need to put these issues into a position paper push them through different stakeholders. Now, we need to have an engagement. For me, this is coming through with the security, and I will be inviting some of you here to join us in probably putting together that paper, but also the physical engagement that we shall be given with the different stakeholders. Some of them are policy issues, so we're waiting probably when the next government swears in, we can be able to engage. I've also had so many issues around economic empowerment. I don't know, many of us know that in June, the World Bank offered a $300 million economic recovery fund. I don't know whether we know that. And that money was supposed to go for individuals and businesses that have been affected by the pandemic. I don't know whether some of us have got some of this relief. These are some of the questions that we should be asking right now to our leaders, because this was a stimulus fund that was supposed to support a young man in Chikubo whose business ran down during COVID. We don't see that, and yet we see government more being repressive to young people that are already angry, businesses shut down, economics, livelihood lessened, and now the politics comes in and they become the victim. So we need to find a way on how we ask these hard questions. One of the things that I've also heard that, and maybe this causes apathy, is the nature of the youth engagement, but also the call for us to have more engagements on some of these issues. We need to find new ways on how we engage. Marvin talks about action-based engagement. As we talk right now, the conversation in this room has been so insightful, and we're going to put into a document that we are going to use for engaging at various levels. But also, I've heard that the youth voice out there is not united. So the important thing that we must come up with is that how do we use these numbers, the quantitative aspect, qualitatively? For me, that's important. How do we use the numbers to galvanize the qualitative aspect, that young people speak and the leaders listen? It's high time that we echo that and say the past is in the past, and we need to have young people speak and the leaders listen. In fact, young people should enter in boardrooms and they speak, and the leaders just do the issues that they have always highlighted. I also listened to us talking about more platforms for engagement. Of course, when someone asks for more platforms, physical engagement, we can drive them into having aspects around costing them. You have to have maybe a transport refund for young people. And these are some of the challenges that we have. But the fundamental aspect is that how do we create more platform for engaging on some of these issues on a continuous basis? If there are some things that are happening at national level, how do we talk about them on a timely basis? That as it's happening, young people are having conversations and we're having action-based then recommendations on how we move forward. For me, a lot has been said, which I cannot have written about 6 pages of peace engagement. But this for me have come out very strongly that we need to find ways on how we do an action-based engagement so that we move away from the talking and then have a kind of timely engagement on some of these issues. So for me, those are reflections on my end. And on my behalf, I would like to ask each one of us here who have not registered their details in the chat room, please give us your email number, your telephone, where you're coming from. If it's a university, if it's a school, please register in the chat room before we wind up. Next week, we're going to be having a Twitter chat. That next week, Wednesday, I'll be able to let us know. And under the same hashtag, Uganda Youth for Peace. So we're going to have this conversation again, moving on until Wednesday, so that we create momentum on some of these issues. But again, I'm going to continue seeking for this audience that Afande Waswa has asked me to follow up, so that we can have a position paper and have some of these engagements with key stakeholders. Thank you so much for being a part of this engagement. And for me, Marvin, if you have anything to say, please go ahead.
No, I'll just thank the participants one more time and also encourage them to engage on social media. It's also another tool that we can use to make our voice heard. Otherwise, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.